Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the 5x5 Network. I have something special I'm going to bring you guys today. I actually just finished rendering it and uploading it. That's why I'm a little late. My apologies. As you know, we've been covering a lot of stuff that has to do with South Africa. I've been looking for someone from South Africa for a couple of years now that actually lives in South Africa since I lost touch with Bad Boy. I have to give a huge shout out to 412 for making that happen. I actually heard KB call into one of his shows. And because of that connection, he actually connected me to two other women that live there in South Africa. So what I did a little bit earlier today, if you don't know, South Africans, their time zone is 7 hours ahead of mine. So it makes it difficult to do stuff later on in the evening for them. But I was fortunate enough to, at the very beginning, you'll see Breaking has joined me. He actually left and went to that rally we told you guys about on Wednesday. And you'll see KB along with Evie and an Enoch, she goes by Skywatcher, these two women that live there as well. So I need your help, though, because initially I've done this before when I did a broadcast of my father's interview over on my other backup channel. And people were saying that if I muted up, they couldn't hear the audio. I'm hoping that's not the case today because you don't want to hear me in the background. I'm going to play this through. I'm doing it live because I tried to do this morning with the follow-up interview that we had the other day. We actually shut down that broadcast, but after the fact, we brought in Daddy Dragon and Homesteader, and they came in and actually asked really great questions. So I went ahead and recorded that and uploaded it. If you missed it on Foxhole, you can catch it on D Live and yes, of course, on YouTube, but it is there. So I'm also thinking about rebroadcasting my interview I did 2 years ago with Bad Boy because it's still relevant today. And with that, what I'm going to do, if you guys will help me, I see I've got D Live up right now in my chat room. I'm going to play some of this. And D Live, I'm going to watch you. I'm going to pop out my chat right now. I'm going to watch you. Hey, Captain Kirk, you can help me. If you will, please let me know if you can hear this when I share the audio and I mute myself. If there's any issue with it, please let me know so I can just go ahead and keep myself unmuted. But with that, here is the follow-up to another great interview about what's currently happening in South Africa. I really hope you guys enjoy. And I'll be watching for the 5x5 out there in D Live. If you can let me know that you hear this, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks, guys. Let's share this. Here we go. I'll be listening. Thanks, Captain Kirk. Here we go. Let me know if you can hear this, because I'm going to play it now and then I'm going to mute myself right now.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Spectre here on the 5x5 channel. Here we have got a panel of guests here in our discussions on South Africa as of late. Today now being the 15th day of July. Definitely had some developments over the last couple days, and I'll preface it by saying yesterday we found out that over 70 killed as South Africa crumbles despite military intervention. That was the headline yesterday morning out of Zero Hedge. It was later updated to South African Army activates all reserve members. Amid the worsening social unrest, and then here today, now again on this 15th day, it's called a war zone. South Africa to deploy 25,000 troops as the country is on the brink of a civil war. So again, we've got KB joining us as we had the other day. For those that tuned in, we also have Evie and Skywatcher joining myself and SoCO. So I'll open it up to the panel here today to open that discussion up and see what all is playing out on the other side of the world here.
Thanks for having us on, Breaking, and Laura. SoCO, we've fortunately been in a situation in South Africa where so there has been some good that's come out of this recent atrocity. It's actually been quite amazing to see how the various communities have actually got together to fight back. So what I'd like to do is during the course of this broadcast is actually show some of the bad and also show some of the good. Because it's quite interesting how people have banded together to help each other's communities You found across the color spectrum people going to defend malls, to defend homes, to defend schools, etc. We're finding that people are actually making food available to each other. It's really, there's some interesting developments. I don't think that the dark forces at play here were expecting. They didn't expect the kind of unity. Ordinarily, if something like this had happened perhaps 10 years ago, you would have had divisions between the various communities across racial lines. But it's been very encouraging of late.
I guess,
sorry.
KB, before you go further, maybe step back a little bit for our audience tuning in here, just to shed a little color on what got us to this point, because the media would have us believe that the spark that lit all this off was the fact that Jacob Zuma was put in jail, basically based on corruption charges, and the courts in that actually upheld that and made it stick, right? So the question is what is really the spark that lit all this off to get us to this point?
It's been very well orchestrated. So that's what the media will have you believe. Effectively, the entire cabinet is corrupt. Okay, the corruption spreads across virtually every single powerful individual in government here. So from where I sit, it appears that they were wanting to blame a lot of this on Zuma, this uprising, and not to say that he didn't contribute or his incarceration didn't contribute to this at all. But I think the fires were lit elsewhere. I mean, we've had reports of an attempted coup within the government today. I'm a bit skeptical about that because it seems to be orchestrated by government players. We have evidence of people going into the townships and encouraging looting. They're actually paying agitators to get out there. We believe there's going to be another wave tomorrow because as of now, the Cape has escaped this. And as I mentioned off air earlier, the Cape, I think, escaped it largely due to the fact that there was torrential downpours and bad weather. But that allowed the communities here to actually galvanize and prepare better. So we are expecting another attempt at crippling the Cape, but I think people here are much better prepared. In fact, virtually every single gun store that I'm aware is out of ammo. So people are extremely well prepared. So what got us to this point? I think a combination of things. Certainly Zuma's incarceration, but that I think was utilized by bad actors as an excuse as well. So it was encouraged. I don't think it's entirely as what the media would like us to believe. It's much better planned than that.
I was going to say, to me, it looks very reminiscent of what we saw play out after the George Floyd stuff last year here stateside. All the burning of cities, the looting, all that stuff. That was not something that happened as a result of a conviction one way or the other on what happened with the George Floyd stuff. The stuff was well orchestrated.
Yes,
May I jump in here?
Yeah.
SoCO. First of all, the Jacob Zuma has not yet been found guilty of corruption. He was charged with contempt of court because he refused to appear in front of the Constitutional Court, stating that one of the judges was biased against him. And it appears that that concern is correct. There are indications that some of the Constitutional Court judges were bought and accepted fairly large bribes and sums of money. So he was actually found guilty of of contempt of court, which is what put him in jail. And the sentence that was handed down was substantially larger than any contempt of court sentencing. So that's just a little bit of information on that. But actually, what has definitely happened is, following on from what KB was saying, is, and what you were saying, breaking, this is definitely a well orchestrated and very strategically planned operation for destruction and chaos. It's understood that many of the looters and rioters, when they went into the stores and the shops, they were screaming at the general public that was in there for them to get out, to run, get in their cars, move away from the scene, because they did not actually want to cause harm to the people. Their target was the actual infrastructure. It was the buildings, it was the stock, whether it be food or pharmaceuticals, or electricity, power, water, as some of the reservoirs were also damaged. So it's been very strategic. And when many of these rioters were arrested, they all apparently gave the same story. So they'd read from the same hymn book, and the answer they gave as to why they were writing was always, "I'm hungry." Nobody deviated from that. So it's definitely come out that there was a strategic plan in place, and that this was prior planned, and there must have been some kind of training that was given to them. We don't know for how long, but definitely it was very much like what we saw play out in America, where these were targeted, these were funded individuals.
Right.
They went in with a goal and a purpose, and they were told exactly what to do and how to do it. So because many of the vehicles that were in areas, also for distribution centers, the tires were slashed. Now, a normal looter would go in to steal stuff, not to go necessarily damage the goods and property that was there. So
I guess, yeah, go ahead and finish.
Definitely
militarized and definitely planned. And I will also add to what KB was saying, in that I think what took everybody by surprise was the way the community rallied together. It's been absolutely an incredible thing to see. There is the Taxi Association of South Africa, which has oftentimes in the past caused challenges to the community, because they're a very large group of people with a lot of weight, and they have oftentimes blockaded roads to put a point across and to achieve a certain goal. And we suddenly saw them coming together with the farmers and the community and the local police, and actually joining forces and putting their vehicles, their taxis, in position as a physical barrier, and creating human shields to protect what was left of the infrastructure and their communities. So it's been, I'm so excited as a South African to have seen good people not even looking at color, just looking at the goodness of their hearts and their morality, and actually standing together. It has been the most inspiring time that I've had over the last few days. I'm so in awe of what has gone on.
I guess maybe a question I might have in that regard, kind of backing up to this contempt of court business, right? To me, the way I read that, based on what has played out, is that it was kind of a save face for your justice system. Had they not done that, it basically would have more or less morphed into a Banana Republic type situation, where it's just a system of justice, more like what we've got here. If you guys paid attention to what happened with General Flynn, we had the very same thing play out here, right? And had they not done that, I guess, if nothing else, does it give the illusion that there is some level of justice in the country, or no?
Yes, I'll answer that. To a large swathe of particularly the white community, who've been really convinced that Jacob Zuma is the most evil person in the world. Not to say that he's an angel, and not to say that he hasn't done anything crooked, but he's not alone. I don't think, I think the Black community is a lot wiser in this respect. And I suspect that they understand that the corruption doesn't begin and end with Zuma. It's much wider than that, because they live it every day. And yes, but to directly answer your question, there was an illusion among certain members of society that eventually there was justice and he deserved to be in jail. And I think those are the people who really aren't paying attention. I think those are the people that just like the sound bites that you suffer with CNN and the like. So with respect to what Michelle was describing, I think that was a result of the fact that South Africans are really wiser than what we give them credit for. And I was also encouraged, and I think that came across earlier when I was sending certain videos and information through. I mean, things are better than what the media is portraying.
If I can, thank you. I was just going to ask if you had anything you wanted to add. Go ahead, Evie.
Yes, if I can say, I agree with Michelle, with Sky, and with KB. This is a well-orchestrated plan. This doesn't come just from last week or a month ago. This is what I believe years in advance. It's planned years in advance. If you see what's been happening in South Africa, and we've tried to everything to turn the world's eyes to our country, how it's not only just white people that's been slaughtered. It's black people as well. It's our farming community. We've been trying to get the attention of the world on what's really happening here. They've been trying to take our weapons away, starting with our farmers, not giving out new licenses to weapon holders, but they have to turn their weapons in. It was first of all to get us unarmed in order to put us in such a situation that when they attack and when they start planning these coups and things and bringing in the people, the well-trained terrorists from abroad, that we won't be able to defend ourselves. But they've underestimated the South African heart, the South African spirit, and they've underestimated how we as a nation can come together and stand together and protect what's ours. And we will look across color, language, because we've got 11 different languages here, and then it gets to a point where we stand together, protect our people, protect our families, protect our ground from these people, because as KB said, our politicians are all crooked, they're all corrupt, and it came to a point where it's us against them. And we need to defend ourselves. We need to defend our own household. I've seen some people, I've listened to some people who said, you know what, I'm a housewife, I'm a shop owner, I've never used armed weapons before, but it came to a point now I need to shoot or get shot. So it's women, housewives standing up, shooting in order to protect their families. But how we encourage each other and stand together, that is actually the good story coming out of it. But what the world needs to know is South Africa has been under attack, not for the last week, not for the last month, but look at how they've been killing our farmers. And it's, as I said, I've done interviews with farmers, with the people working on the farms, and what was real interesting was whether they a black farmer or a white farmer, the community stand together. When they are attacked, they stand together. They don't look at each other. They don't look at color. And I think this is what our government's trying to do, is cause division between black and white.
Yeah, that's
and we can relate to that here in America. I do want to say one thing really quick. I did an interview 2 years ago about this very issue about South Africa. It had nothing to really do with the color of skin. It had everything to do with the farmers because of the land and the mineral rights. But before we maybe go on to that, I need to kind of dial something back here. hearing from you, Evie, about the access to firearms in South Africa for farmers is what the narrative here in America that we have. It's really hard to get a firearm. But like talking to KB about it, it seems like that's not an issue. So is it a regional thing, or where's the discrepancy there? Where KB says firearms are easy to get and then
they,
difficult.
you know what happened then is our people, the farmers and many white people refused to give in their firearms. So they've got some of their firearms, some of them got licensed, but others just don't get licensed. If my dad, for instance, has a firearm and they just refuse to give him a license, but he's not going to give it in. Because if something happens, he needs to protect my mom. So, they've been putting the as I can call it, the Afrikaner people. We have organizations amongst us where we do have ammunition. We do keep our firearms. We just refuse to give it in. Because when things comes to this, it's our old defense people, our army, as we call it, people that we used to look up to, people that we were really proud of. We were proud of our army. We were proud of the people who fought for us. But if we look at them now, our army and the police and what we've got now, it's embarrassing. We can't depend on them. So we need to look at our people who was the army and the police of the 80s. And it's got nothing to do with apartheid, but those guys were the guys who can fight for us. Those were the guys who went to the border that defend us. Now, those are the guys that's got the armor. If something happens, we know those are the guys that will stand up.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something, Skywatcher? Okay, yeah, she unmuted.
Yes. Evie is 100% correct about that. And in fact, the Army, the old South African Defence Force reservists that have just been called up and activated today, they number in the millions. But the interesting fact is it's not all the reservists that have been called up. It's only the guys that are after 1994. The ex-South African Defence Force chaps who are pre-1994 have not been called up. And from what I've come to understand is the reason is that there are so many of them. They outnumber the current army. They are more well-equipped and prepared than the current army, and the government is, in fact, a little bit concerned about them because they are so strong and so well-organized and well-prepared. And exactly what Evie said, these are the chaps who have been solid Defence Force members, patriotic, fighting for their country for decades, looking after the borders, going into Africa. They are well organized and prepared to step forward at the drop of a hat and take care of things in the country. So, it's not all the reservists and the ex-Defence Force people that have been called up. It is at a certain cutoff date they've been activated, but the rest of the guys who do have more firepower than the current army, they are so well equipped. They are, I'll put in inverted commas, they're being held back. The government isn't calling them up, but they themselves are at the ready. And it's very heartening to know that this is the situation, that there really are some incredibly patriotic, amazing, courageous men who are, and I assume there's women in there too, who are ready to step forward, at a moment's notice to take care of things.
So just briefly, hang on, I want to cover this, so I want some clarity here briefly. When you say well-equipped, are the people that are being well-equipped, they're getting that through the back channels because the government's not supportive? So when KB references saying that it's easy for people to find firearms, it's because the back channels are supplying them. They're not going through the normal.
Correct.
Unfortunately, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Maybe KB, you do?
Yes, it's quite interesting because one of the biggest defenders of property was the Indian Asian community in Natal, and they are extremely well armed. Whether they of a Hindu background or Muslim background, they have actually been quite incredible. And in fact, a good friend of mine is manning one of the roadblocks in KZN, and I spoke to him 3 times today, and he was saying to me, it's amazing. People are manning these roadblocks. You'll find every color under the sun, everything that God created, you'll find there, and they're working together. And amazing, you know, one of the things that's been quite universal is that with all these COVID nonsense lockdowns, people never got to talk. Now, no one's really taking much notice of, obviously, of all these restrictions, and they're going out there to defend. And communities are actually just incredible. I mean, it is quite uplifting, as Evie said. We're watching this play out, and I don't think the bad actors in this game, the government, expected this. I think they expected anarchy and chaos, and what they got after a brief attack was a pushback, and a big pushback.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up.
Yeah. I think they tried years ago, well, when they started with all this, and, you know, they're still giving apartheid, they're blaming apartheid for everything. Now, apartheid has been, well, I think we're experiencing apartheid now even more than what they've been blaming us of. But they've been trying to cripple us as a nation at grassroots levels when they started to attack our farmers, because that's where our food comes from. These are the interviews I had with the farmers. Now, they're trying to make them out as these horrible, racist people. Now, I can tell you, spending a week with them in their homes, on their lands, talking to them, these are the most salt of the earth people, the most humblest of humble people, people who's out there to provide food for a nation because they care. They are proud to be part of a food basket for South Africa and Africa. They are not farmers, or like the media is trying them out to be, as these horrible people who wants to kill, who hate. They're not like that. Now, we as an Afrikaner people that's being portrayed to the rest of the world. Oh, those are the apartheid people. So where does the government start? Take them out. Because they know these are the guys who can defend. These are the guys who's got the training. These are the guys who look after their land and the people on their land. Doesn't matter which color you are. You must see how these people treat their workers on the farms. The farm people working on the farms loves the farmers. They stand together as a community. If there's a farm attack, they stand together. They cry as hard as the people who's been attacked. And they all know, when I spoke to them, they said, you know what, we all know these are well-trained terrorists being brought from Zimbabwe, Mozambique, to come and kill us. I spoke to a police guy, a black police guy, because he's been helping the farmers and protecting the farmers. They went into his house. They killed his wife. They killed his kids. They killed his grandkids. His one daughter was pregnant. She was busy washing the dishes. They killed her as well, because it's a community standing together. And that's where the real threat is for the government.
I think that anybody that looks into the history of South Africa understands the Boers have been living alongside the tribes there for hundreds of years. It's just, if you see how they kill these people, it is brutal. Yeah, we talked about
the most horrific. Yeah, but it's how they want to cripple us. And they thought, well, taking our ammunition, taking away our weapons, and planning this, they'll be able to get us down as a nation.
Yeah,
but they forgot about the South African spirit and the South African heart, that when things come, we forget about our backgrounds, we forget about our color, we forget about our language, and we stand together as a nation.
Yep. That's, to me, the part that they underestimate about every nation in that cares about freedom, whether they look to the U.S. as the shining beacon on the hill or not. But there's one thing I want to go back to here that I've heard mentioned a number of times, and that's well orchestrated and well funded. When I hear that phrase, typically I think of somebody like Soros with deep pockets and open society and color revolutions and things of that nature, because we know this stuff was not born in a vacuum. And so if you look at how things have played out over the last year and a half now with the COVID stuff, the rapidity of which they locked all the nations down and hoped that people wouldn't, have conversations behind the scenes, use censorship on all the platforms, you name it. And then, of course, you see the Event 201 stuff that played out to make it happen, which we know is born out of the Davos crowd, the World Economic Forum type. And then, of course, the Klaus Schwabs, who openly purports that you will own nothing and be happy about it, right? At the end of the day, all that has to do with land, your property, whatever. It doesn't matter. You'll just be a rentier. They want to have neo-feudalism back, and they're going to be the ones in charge. And we'll just take the planet down to the old Georgia Guidestones that say 500 million on the whole planet, and you'll live with it. So my question to you is, either one of you guys, have you guys dug into or seen any evidence thus far that might point us in the direction of some of these NGOs, if you will, of Soros's Open Society or any other purveyors?
Yes, they are present. In fact, he's got direct links with some oil and refineries in the country. He's certainly got a vested interest. He has been here, and it's purported that he has been one of the funders of some of the previous senior people within the ANC. The important thing also to understand is that the British influence here has been really horrific. In fact, very few people actually understand the influence that they've had over this country for the last 150 years. And it's interesting to note that just prior to the discovery of gold and diamonds, the British were about to evacuate South Africa, and Lord Kitchener's words were, "There's nothing here but a dust bowl." And the minute that gold was found, they changed their minds. And effectively, if you actually just take a big 40,000-foot view of the country, what you have now is an interesting mix. You've got the British, which have got their grubby little paws all over the minerals, the resources, particularly the metals, gold, silver, platinum. And obviously the derivatives from that. I mean, you whatever comes with that. We also see the Chinese now that are making massive inroads into Africa, and they've kind of started here and have moved north, and that's trying to get all the agricultural land. So we know that they have funded, for example, the current incumbent in government. He sold 50% of his personal wealth to the Chinese sovereign fund. So, I mean, it doesn't become more clear than that. So you've got effectively the Europeans that have got an influence here through Soros, the Americans to a way less extent, I think, have left Africa alone largely over the past 15 years, although 44 was here in 2019. And we all wonder what it was about. In fact, he even made it to South Africa to give a speech about freedom and racism. And all he did was sow a bit more division when he came here, which is really what he does. But from a financial perspective, what's quite interesting, the wetlands, which are on the north part of KZN, where the majority of the uprisings taken place, or the destruction, also has large deposits of iridium. So, and iridium is quite an interesting thing, because one of the things that you can do aside from batteries is the printers. I think we had a brief discussion about this a couple of days ago, but you need that powder. So all these 3D printers out there, one of the best things to use is iridium powder. So, you know, that may or may not be part of what's going on here, but certainly foreign influence in the form of Soros and other bad actors is certainly prevalent.
Yeah, well,
Yes, while they're dividing the people, they're pillaging the land. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, there's okay. There's in the north, the north of our country. There's almost the Chinese has almost taken over. There's this huge Chinese population where they've got this big Chinese community that I don't think the average South African person is even aware of. That they are taking, they're trying to take Africa over bit by bit.
Yes. In fact, one other thing that's quite interesting is apparently there was a meeting between many significant world leaders, as well as Jacob Zuma and Ramaphosa and various other South African leaders in about 2003 to discuss New World Order. And Zuma apparently left the meeting very, very angry. And there were some ladies who worked for the UN who were involved in the meeting, transcribing and taking notes. And he walked up to them and basically said that there is no ways. He was very angry when he left the meeting. They were sitting just outside during a break. And he walked up to them and said that there is no ways, whilst he is alive, that he will ever allow the Zulu people to be taken in under the control of the New World Order. So he was definitely against that, and I still think he was against it, against the Zulu people being taken in under that, which ultimately would mean he would be against South Africa being taken in under New World Order. The interesting thing about iridium that you mentioned, KB, iridium is also used in spacecraft. It's got some very special properties that means it is a perfect mineral to be used for the development of spacecraft and satellites. Lockheed Martin and many other big companies that develop satellites and are involved in this space race and space development, they utilize iridium. So it is very fascinating that you mentioned that there's a large deposit of iridium in South Africa, because I got to understand that just a few days ago that South Africa has a number of astronauts at the ready to go up into space, which I was not aware of. But apparently there's South Africa had a fairly big space department many years ago, which was then put on hold when the new government came in the 1990s. And but it seems to have been that it has still been operating in the shadows. And there are currently very well-trained South African astronauts at the ready. So I'm not quite sure yet how much iridium is used for South Africa's space development programs, but it is certainly used by overseas companies for their spacecraft. and I must say possibly for off-terrestrial communities that are utilizing the mineral for their spacecraft development as well. So that's an interesting thing to consider.
It's never really about the narrative that they push out in the media. There's always some underlying agenda. It's just like I mentioned before, you know, it's divide and conquer, right?
Yeah.
What they're doing to South Africa now.
Yeah, it's all to cause division, and also scare the people, because we still have a lot of people who's not really educated. And it's easy to scare them, promise them things in order to manipulate them, to have them cause these havoc. And like the looters and the people who's going out to loot the shops and burn down the places, even going into the farmlands. I saw a video of this one farmer. They burned down his whole crop. So it's not really, I won't say, and it's not being negative about towards them, but it's not really educated people that they get to do this, to do their dirty job. But it's if they can manipulate people, promise them some stuff, and get them to do everything. That's what they want. But now what they've done, now these people has gone out, done all these bad things, and started in their own communities. Now they've burned down their own shops, the hospitals and places, and now they're sitting, they're hungry. Now we're getting all around, from South Africa, please send food to these places, because they've burned down their own places. They've got no food. They've got no access to medicine because they've burned it down. But if these people can be manipulated, they can cause as much damage as they want to. And that's a sad thing.
How do you think you create a socialist country? You destroy all the food and water and then rely on the government to provide it.
The government's not going to provide. The government's not going to provide. They're all out for themselves.
I know, but what I'm saying is how you control a population is you make them less independent. And, you give the perception the government's going to save you in order to give them all the power. Again, I live in America, so we see this push for socialist agenda. And so like currently now, I played a video a couple of days ago of a young man. He's in our military. His dad's been in agriculture for 40 years, and the government is pushing for them to destroy their crops, offering them 1.5 the value of those crops in order to get them to destroy them. Why would you do that? So the kind of what I'm listening to whenever you guys discuss, like I watched a video yesterday of an entire tanker full of milk that was just dumping it on the ground in South Africa. And there's two variables there. It's because what are the people in South Africa attacking and destroying? It's mostly, the semi trucks, the people that are delivering the goods. So that's where my mind went with that. And then I don't know if you guys are familiar. I only caught a very small glimpse of it, but apparently there was like a place that was housing chickens and goats and stuff, and people were just pillaging that and robbing that of everything they could grab, all the chickens, the goats. And it's like it's trying to stop. What do you think you're going to do when that runs out? There's going to be nothing behind that.
No, it's very sad. I came across a video a couple of days ago of a economics lecturer who was talking, and I'm not sure the context. He was either giving a workshop or a lecture in a university, not too sure what it was. But what this gentleman was saying to his audience is that this is the way we as Western lecturers need to teach and train our economic students, because when you go out and you create a business, we have to make sure that you learn how to keep South Africa poor. You've got to keep South Africa impoverished, because with South Africa being poor, we are able, as the Western world, that's America and Europe, we are able to extract the minerals for a fraction of the cost. We are able to have a very plush and luxurious lifestyle in the Western world because we can get so many of our raw materials for next to nothing from an impoverished South Africa. And he was saying we do not want South Africa to ever become powerful, because then the Western world will suffer. They will not be able to maintain the level of lifestyle and standard that they are used to. So when you listen to something like that, you realize that there's so much more that's going on here, because ideally South Africa and Africa is extremely rich in minerals, which are providing raw materials to the rest of the world and the Western world. But essentially, we all would be better off around the world if every country was allowed to prosper, and that there was free trade, and that people could, share resources and share minerals on an equitable basis to allow each country to benefit, and not at the expense of one, which is clearly what's happened here. Because the more whatever the groups are that are behind all of this, the more they can destroy South Africa, the more they will put themselves in a powerful position to be able to plunder the minerals.
We actually played that the other day, but I'll go ahead and share it again to provide some context to what she's talking about. This is the one, I think, KB, that you had sent me about we must keep South Africa poor. I'll go ahead and share that now. There's also one you sent me. It might be a good time to even actually share that, but I'll go ahead and do this one now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Africa, historically, sub-Saharan Africa, has been fundamental to the global prosperity of the advanced countries. Okay? And Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital for the prosperity of everyone else. So let's get clear about that. Okay, and this means all the economic structures, all the global institutions, and the economics we teach everyone is all designed to keep Africa exactly where it is. And whether it is Europe or US or now China, it's always the same. We need Africa to be impoverished because we need those raw materials and we need them dirt cheap. Okay, so that's the message. It doesn't mean to say that there's nothing Africans can do. Of course there is. Okay, but this is the opposition that they're fighting. This is what it's about. Because if Africa does do something different, I assure you living standards of all those in Europe and North America and Asia is going to fall. Okay? And that is a big price to pay. I assure you that the West is not going to allow that without a big fight. Okay, so this is what it's fundamentally about. What I want to show you is how these structures are operating. It's just 20 minutes, so we can't do very much, but just to give you a little bit of an idea.
Okay, that's the gist of it. But, and KB, you tell me, you had sent me another one from Facebook. I think I have it fast forwarded to where the important part is, if you think now's a good time to share that as well.
Yes, and just the context of the one you're about to share, it's actually from a government or municipal leader. So these are that's why we know that this is orchestrated. This is one little piece of evidence that we have that shows that there's government involvement in this uprising. And it is that they are really stoking the fires, but yeah, go ahead and show it, and then perhaps the girls can actually comment.
Okay.
It is actually extremely heartbreaking to listen to that. Many times and very often, if people reach out from abroad, the questions I get to ask about South Africa and Africa is really, Well, it's humorous and we laugh about it because it's, do you stay in huts in South Africa? No. Do you have cars? If we want to come to South Africa, do we need to bring our own drinking water and medicines and stuff? No. We are we're a beautiful country. We are modern. We've got modern buildings. We drive the latest cars. We've got beautiful homes. We dress well. We don't dress in skins, animal skins. We don't have lions for pets. We don't have these stupid things that the media, or I don't know who's out there trying to portray us. We as Africans, and this now doesn't matter what skin color we are, because very often if I get asked, where are you from? If I go abroad and you say South Africa, it's, but you're white. Africa, first of all, is not just black people. We are white people. We are colored people. We are Indian people. We are a rainbow of people who cares about this country, who wants this country to perform well, who loves this country. I've been asked as well, why are you still in South Africa? It's because this is my home. This is where I'm born. This is where my family is. This is where my friends are. This is my country. We love this ground. We love this place. We've got nowhere else to go, but we are constantly being they're trying to chase us away. And we will make this country work again. Doesn't matter what forces is out there to try and bring us down. What they don't know, or what the rest of the world don't know, is we as a nation will stand together. We've seen it in the past. And I think every time that we go through something like this, we just stand together more tightly and we fight harder because we know what we're fighting for. The rest of the world may not share our sentiment. To the rest of the world, Africa and South Africa is just an uneducated dust ball who doesn't know what they do, who's uneducated, who lives in huts and wears skins, and that might well be what they think of us.
I think it's important that we show that clip because it actually demonstrates that the so-called elected people are behind this. So it's important for the world to see that where the division
I just didn't want to do it over her when she was talking. That would have hurt her. So I can show it now. And I just want to briefly state about as far as keeping lions as pets. Honey, you're talking to an American. There are more Americans that have tigers in captivity as pets than are found in the wild. Okay, so we're the crazy country over here. All right, don't you worry. Here's the Facebook because we do. We have more lions and tigers in captivity than found in the wild in Texas. So here you go. And again, Mike Tyson kept one in an apartment, I believe, in New York. So here you go.
We are not
really
condoning the behavior of other people that have been coming to areas, burning shops, doing that. That must be condemned with its strongest terms. But we can't allow ourselves to be divided in race, on racial basis. Why should they allow apartheid to come back? It's only apartheid most, which says you are white, you are an Indian, you are an African, you are a colored, you are everything. So it's only apartheid that did that to us. So we must reject that notion because it is a demonic pandemic that will live with us forever if we allow it to find expression in our communities. We must fight it by all means, reject it. When I see you, I must see my brother, I must see my sister, I must see my mother, I must see my father. I must not see a color in you. I must see a South African. I must see a Durbanite, a person who belongs here in this city. Because Durban, Echewini belongs to all who live in it. So now discrimination must be rooted out, especially the pandemic of racism. Now we are here to source your views, but your views should be based on the way forward, what needs to be done from today, moving forward, to root out the scourge in our communities. Now, those who persist to make the call to release President Zuma, we are urging them to make that call, but respecting the laws of this country. Because it's a call that they believe they are correct to raise. As a mayor, as a member, Impagati, now, why should I be shy to tell you I support Msholos? I support him. What is wrong with that? And when I write to my Facebook page, my personal page, and say I support Msholos, Msholos is us, and we are Msholos. Release Msholos. What is wrong with that? Am I inciting violence? It's my right. Why do I not have right because I'm a man? I have a right, constitutional right. But I must protect the other rights of others who do not feel the way I feel. And I must respect that right. It's their own right, constitutional right, freedom of expression. Now some of our colleagues here are saying I'm inciting violence. It's because it happened that the call which I was also supporting, now some criminal elements have occupied the space, they want to pursue their interest, things are happening this way, that means the mayor has incited violence. There's no such. And I can't be neutral. If you are forcing me to be neutral, I rather leave the seat of being the mayor. I can't be neutral. Can't be neutral. Even judges are not neutral. Can't be neutral. But when I execute my responsibilities, I can't put my political card. I must service everybody equally. That is my right. But now to be judged by people and say you are inciting violence, no. Because if you keep quiet or I keep quiet, tomorrow this thing will happen to you or it will happen to me. But you are not promoting corruption. He has followed all the rights, things, legal things, to challenge things, then let's allow him to do that. Let's await the Concord to decide. But as a mayor, when I go and address people who are angry, who are demanding his release, and say, please calm down. The question that they raised with me, and the answer which I do not have, is Msholos going to be released or not? We don't know that. So that's what they demand. They are saying you are a leader. Some of them, they think that the mayor can just go to president and say to president and the premier release Msholos, and Msholos get released. Now it's legal framework that would be followed. There are legalities in all these things. But I'm not here.
Okay. The audio is pretty bad on this one, but I'm going to share it, KB, because trying to find what this man says this in an 11-minute long video might be too much for me. So I'm going to share this one. The audio, I apologize, is a little rough, but it gets to the part of this speech that KB wanted people to hear.
Once you are done with that looting, go to Indian areas. Not me saying that, I'm saying the court says that. Go to Indian communities, go there and kill Indians and burn their houses. Go to white areas, go there once you are done with looting, go there and kill white community, then and burn their houses.
There you go. That was the part I was trying to find in there. Sorry about that. It was a little off the rails with the. But what do you think that he's trying to say there? Because the part of the speech I did play, it sounded like he was saying that, you know, he had liked something or supported something and people were trying to say that he was supporting a radical viewpoint.
Well, basically what he was trying to say is that as a mayor, he got accused of inciting violence. And as with most politicians, he was saying that, no, that they should follow the rule of law, et cetera, et cetera. But and then it becomes conflated into a racial thing. So what I'm trying to say is that you're finding so many pockets of division within, particularly the ANC, the Black community, And what they're trying to do is incite violence, and it's public officials that are mostly responsible. The point really is, and it's the one that was well made by Evie earlier, is that they didn't expect this pushback from the community. So even amongst their own people, they're not heeding the word of effectively the warlords. They actually, people are saying, no, it's enough now. We don't want to go on a killing spree. We don't want to go and fight our neighbors regardless of their color. And therein lies some kind of hope. It was merely just to demonstrate that the calls for violence, overtly and covertly, appear to be coming only from so-called elected officials.
And probably the people they give the marching orders to, the people that they, like what we consider here in America to be Antifa, and the horrible faction of Black Lives Matter that do this, where you watch in America where they shut down an entire city, say like Los Angeles, made all of the public go home by 6 o'clock in the evening. But after 6 o'clock and everybody went home, you would see Antifa and Black Lives Matter come out in the cover of night with masks on, because, you know, everybody's supposed to wear one, and hoods over their heads, and literally burn down the shops in LA. And so I guess I would wonder, and I know this is difficult, guys. Maybe all three of you can collectively answer it in some way. If you were going to try and nail down here or there in South Africa, how many people, of a percentage-wise, do you think are the most radical, that want this division, that believe in the Boers should be eradicated? And you were going to try and give us an idea of how many people believe that radical viewpoint. How many would you say that is there out of, say, 100% of the population?
I'm going to hazard a guess that if you'd asked me that question perhaps even a month ago, I would have said a higher percentage. But what we're seeing at the moment is that it's really a small percentage of the people, and perhaps there's a significant percentage amongst uneducated, poor people that have got no hope and are perhaps looking to government to perhaps give them something, and are spurred on and are encouraged to be racist because they've got nothing to lose. I mean, these people are hungry as well. We mustn't forget that, and desperate. And yeah, I think it's a lower percentage. I'd hate to put a number to it, but it's a lower percentage than what I would have thought. And I'm glad to say that, you know, having seen what has transpired over the last couple of days.
Yeah, I agree with you, KB. In fact, I think as this whole COVID pandemic narrative has carried on, where it was meant to be just 21 days to, in inverted commas, flatten the curve, I think what has happened is, as people's rights have been removed, and this is around the world, and in South Africa, as people's rights have been removed, and suddenly people have lost jobs, and small business owners and spaza shops, and you know, people who are really just struggling to put a loaf of bread on the table, as the pain has hit so many people so hard in this country, and it has really hit the poorer communities so badly, and those in townships, it's just been too heartbreaking for words. I think there has, as this whole pandemic narrative has been running out and people have started seeing through the lies and the deception, they've started becoming very angry towards the government. And so I think quite right with what you said. I agree now as well that there are far less people in this country that actually want to see this kind of awful situation play out. I think there are far more people now through the entire color spectrum that actually want happy, healthy, positive life in South Africa. Africa where they just want peace and joy. They don't want to struggle with violence and strife as it has been in poverty. I think there are so many more people in this country now that have tasted a little bit of the good life, have had it removed over the last 15, 16, 17 months. And now with all of this, they actually are seeing through it, and they are wanting to defend the freedom that they were given, those 25 odd years ago. So there's definitely far less people. There's a small percentage, I believe, that actually want the destruction.
Well, I think if of what I've gathered, the information I've gathered, and actually speaking to people of various, or I won't mention, but other political parties as well, given the information and seeing and actual information of what's really going on, I don't think it's so much the South Africans that want to see this country destroyed. I think it's more the trained terrorists abroad that's being brought in, who feels nothing for us as a nation, who feels nothing for our country, and for as a people, who comes in, who actually does the big, the huge damaging. But also what need to keep in mind, there's nothing as dangerous as a desperate person. And as Sky and KB said, people are hungry. And with what happened in COVID and stuff, people's been promised money, and there was funding promised to various people and organizations. Many industries has gone to ground. People committing suicide because they can't handle what's going on. They can't feed their families. They can't feed themselves. So I think these type of people, they're hungry. They are the guys who loot as well, because if you're desperate and you need to feed your children and your wife and your grandparents and whoever you're responsible for, you do what you need to do. But I think the majority of South Africans, we don't want to see this country being burned down, and we don't want to see this country go down the drain, because we love our country. And also, I spoke to a couple of people yesterday en route, having some interviews, and I spoke to various colors of people. You know what? They talk from one mouth. This is our country. We will defend our country. We will defend our people. We will defend what's important to us and what we keep dear. So honestly, I think it's a very small percentage of people who wants to destroy this country. And I think the main party of the small percentage is the government.
I think that's, again, I think that if you look at the playbook, you could say the same thing about here in America, where they've tried to divide us racially, and it's just backfired in their face. Part of it being because of the lockdowns, where they thought that they would control the population by locking them down in their homes. What happened in a backfire type of way is that people started, getting online and just consuming so much information and finding things out they never knew. You can look at it, like here in America, I can give an example of the education system. They had been indoctrinating these children for so long without any pushback, but the minute the COVID happened and the lockdowns and these children went online in Zoom classes, parents started being exposed to what their children were learning. And now you have here in America where the enrollees for kindergarten and preschool is down by 13%. Parents have, and now you see what's happening in these school board hearings where parents are outraged of all colors about what they're trying to do with critical race theory. So again, I think it's encouraging, and I think people need to understand, and I've talked to KB about this before, about the importance of kind of going over some of the history, and we can do this in a later date because we've gone over so much here today, but that this is not a white or black or colored thing. And again, I'll say this again, colored is a term used in South Africa. It's not derogatory. They refer to themselves as colored. But how these tribes and the Boers have been living side by side for hundreds of years. This isn't the tribes of South Africa hate the Boer. They've been helping each other for hundreds of years.
Yeah, yeah. If you know what, I spoke to one a black farmer. He was in one of the interviews. I said to him, you know what, if you look at yourself, how would you describe yourself? And he looked at me and he said to me, you know what? I'm a Boer. A Boer is not just a white Afrikaans speaking man, because that's what we are. If they want to bad mouth us or start naming in names and think they're insulting us, they call us Boer, Boere. To us, we're proud of that. We're proud to be Boere. But when this black guy said, you know what, I'm a Boer, it showed me, you know what, we look past skin color. When communities need to stand together, we stand together. I've listened, there was another woman, her husband was killed. He was murdered on a farm by these people. And she said to me, you know what the nice thing was that was actually heartwarming? She said, one of the black farmers, it's a woman, she paid for my husband's tombstone. It was past color. There was, if I just can give a bit of background, so people can know, it is, we're not racist. We're not a racist people. There was two white farmers here. They had their farms on both sides of this black farmer. It's a woman. Her husband died. And she couldn't do the farming by herself. So she said, well, I can't do farming. I need to sell my land because I don't know what to do. My husband was the farmer and I don't know what to do. So these two farmers made an appointment to see her, and they said to her, you know what, there's no way you're going to sell your land. We're not going to allow you to sell your land. We are going to help you. So they've given people and farmers and farm workers to help her. She's got one of the most successful tomato farms now in that area, because the people took hands across the skin color border. That's what's happening. This is what the real South Africa is all about. It's helping. It's not what the government wants us to believe. It's not that what they want to incite is hatred. It's the Afrikaner against the English, and the English against this one, and the Zulu against the Xhosa, and the Xhosa against the Tswana, and the Sotho. It is not that, because that's what they want us to do. But when it really comes where the tire hits the tar, is what you see now. We stand together. And even, you know, the Boere and the people, the defense force of what they call the apartheid heroes, those are the guys that's now ready to stand up to defend all of us. Doesn't matter what our color is. Doesn't matter what our background is. So the biggest problem in South Africa is our government.
Well, welcome to the shit show. So I hate to be blunt about it, but I mean, we just had the Arizona audit hearing today, and you know, Democrats hired 72 lawyers to try and shut that down, and we all have questions about our election integrity here in America. So we're all pushing back against the government here. But I will say, for America, I know that a lot of people look to America as the last bastion of freedom, and I will promise you this: we're aware. We've fought for our freedom. It's not the first time, nor will it be the last. And I will point anyone to wondering what would happen here if they start trying to infringe upon our rights, is to look back on what happened in Virginia when they just mentioned about rolling back our Second Amendment rights. Thousands of people showed up with their firearms in Virginia at that state capitol. And that's just at the mention of changing the law. So where I live, thankfully in the South, I mean, everyone around me is surrounded with firearms. apps. I mean, well, I have them. Everyone here does. And we're very responsible with our ownership too. So if you come to someone and say that that's what you're going to do, I don't know what to tell you. It's not going to happen. But yeah, so we're standing up here in America, and you see the pushback all the time. And so I hope that it gives me encouragement though to hear you say that it's the same over there. But again, that's why I believe it's so important to have people like you on a regular basis to make sure that you combat the narrative that the mainstream media would have you believe about South Africa. Because if there's anything I believe everyone can agree on, the media does not have your best interest at heart. They want to sow division. They want to make everyone think that everyone in South Africa is a racist one way or the other, or people don't care about one another. And the things that you mentioned, Evie, are very important for people to understand, that you are coming together as a people. You're not letting the media dictate how you live, nor are you letting your government dictate that you should all be against one another. It's about coming together and supporting one another to protect your country.
I just want to add two things that are really important here. Again, if it's to quote Breaking, if you take it from the 40,000 foot view, we have had foreign forces influencing much of our history, and for the sole purpose of enriching themselves. What's important here is that the ideology that the current government has and has always been, it's Marxist, at best socialist, but if you look at all the factions which make up the ruling party, from the Pan-African Congress to the South African Communist Party, they're all well left of center. So you've got that ideology that's the ruling government. The second point that I'd like to make is that despite the fact that we are fighting back ourselves and not waiting for anybody to come and help us, your fight within the US to maintain that constitution and your Bill of Rights is vital for our survival. So while we can fight now in the short term, if in the long term the US should fall, okay, that light of freedom will get snuffed out globally because of the forces at work. So in many respects, while we're not looking for anybody to bail us out, we are looking keenly and hopefully at seeing the patriots in the US winning this war, and it's looking better and better each day. We spent some time looking at that Maricopa audit together, or the report on it, and clearly your election was rigged and stolen. And but what we're liking is that from a grassroots movement, it appears that the people are fighting back. And as you mentioned, whether it be critical race theory in the classrooms, whether it means going to get audits for the election, all that kind of thing is very encouraging to us and actually makes us a bit more determined to even dig in our heels that much more and gives us hope. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I must say we've been keeping an eye on what's happening in America very closely. There's quite a number of us that are very well informed and are supporting, the the real government and patriotic at heart, and there are many people on this side who praise for America and for the right thing to be done. And as I can confirm with KB, we know your election was rigged. We know what's going on there. We're not into what mainstream media wants us to believe. We are doing our own homework. We are digging ourselves to get to the truth. And we're not stupid. We are very well informed. So yeah, still praying for you guys, and yeah, keeping you in our prayers and in our hearts.
Well, I just and appreciate that. I will just remind everyone of we've had our freedom, thankfully, for quite a while, long enough for people to be able to amass collections like this. This is a private citizen's collection of tanks, all operational. A citizen's collection of tanks. This is a man with the world's largest fighter pilot collection. Again, this isn't the military. This is just an American citizen that collects fighter jets. So, and then, I mean, he's got such a huge collection. They actually military contracts with him to run mock tests. So it's, again, but, and we kind of know it here. We feel it here. That's why I always encourage people to pray. Remember who's really in control. And it's amazing for me to see whenever they try to do something so evil, like divide people, it always backfires in their face. It never fails.
Yeah.
It always backfires in their face. And then you see what you're witnessing in South Africa, where the people have had enough. They're not going to be told to be divided by race. I mean, look at these farmers, like you mentioned. They've probably lived next to that woman and her husband for years.
Yeah.
So they can relate to what she's going through. They want to help her.
Yes. And you know what? She hasn't sold her farm, and she's exporting her tomatoes now. She became an exporter, not just for local, but I think to Europe as well. So she became a successful tomato farmer because of people in the community, as they call themselves communities. Who helped each other. And I think this is what, if you look into South Africa and you look at our people, that's what you'll find. We are very warm, and we're very loving, and we're kind, and we love to laugh. And one of our things is we always find humor in everything. We'll find something. We'll go and look for the positive. Putting a smile on on each other's faces. Even if it goes so bad, if it's so dark, we'll go out of our way to put a smile on somebody's face, on just to say, listen, we're not going to lie down. We've got a plan. We've got backup. And as you say, we know who's in control. We know the God of the heavens is in control, and he will not let us down. He hasn't let us down in the past, and neither will he in the future, and God will not make a mockery out of him. So we know, well, the Africans are also very, I wouldn't say religious, because we're not hung onto religious. We hung onto God, because we know this is where our help comes from, and he will not let us down this time either.
All you have to do is go to the end of the book, and you know who wins.
Yeah.
It's pretty simple. And just as a matter of interest for your viewers, SoCO, as you know, Afrikaans is a derivative of Dutch, and the word boere actually means farmers. Directly translated, that's exactly the word. So the translation of the word is a farmer. And that's why when Evie was mentioning the black farmer, he was quite correct when he called himself a boer.
Yeah. There's a really wonderful opportunity out of all of this darkness, is that once the South Africans are empowered and truly have their liberation and they've taken it back, there's South Africa, and you're talking about farmers here and agriculture. South Africa and Southern Africa has an incredible opportunity to become the food basket of the world. The soil is so fertile. Up in Zimbabwe, there are so many farms that are sitting empty and abandoned because of the political situation over many years. When the people are put back onto their farms and they start tilling and toiling the soil, and getting these farms up to scratch and producing crops, we are going to have the most incredible opportunity to provide abundant, nutritious food to all the continents and to all the countries around the world. And I think that is going to give South Africans who have so oftentimes felt exploited, I think for the first time they're going to feel empowered and part of a global community on an equal footing. And this is something that really encourages me to work with people and to motivate them to step forward and take control and accept the freedom that is coming their way, and to develop it into something that is going to put us all on an equal footing with the rest of the world.
Yeah. And yeah, if I, from my side, I'm an Afrikaner. My home language is Afrikaans. And most of our farmers are Afrikaans speaking. That's why they're called the boere, and that's why governments also sing, well, in their songs and stuff, kill the boer, kill the farmer. If for the rest of the world, and as Sky correctly said, we're going to be the food basket of the world, it's for your viewers and your listeners, pray for our farmers, pray for their protection, pray for God's guidance and help, because they are the vulnerable ones at this stage. They're sitting out in rural areas, most of the times unprotected. And if you can just hear the stories that, the real stories of how they are murdered, brutally murdered, and even our government and the president is denying it. He says, no, it's nonsense. They are not being killed. They are not being brutally murdered, and which is a lie, because I sat with those people. I saw the photos. It's horrible. And people all around the world are desperate. They're hungry. But we need to protect our farmers, especially in South Africa. This is where I got my start.
You're preaching to the choir. This is an interview I did 2 years ago with an anon I call Bad Boy. I had a relationship with him for a year. Look at what it says, Saving South Africa. That's all we talked about, is some of the history, how they, they're talking about what was going on with the farmers. That's why I have the base of knowledge that I do have, that it's not really about the color of a person's skin. It's about what is found on these farms, because Africa took such a huge loan from China that now China wants some of that money back. Then the only way South Africa has to pay them is because you're so richly resourced in minerals that's where they're targeting these certain farms. They don't care what color the skin is of the farmer. They just want the mineral rights on the farm.
One of the things that's quite important to understand in context is that the ruling party currently has been in power since 94, effectively, okay? And the delivery of just basic water, electricity has been dismal. So the people that they were purported to have liberated have not seen any of the benefits. And what they have seen is that the ruling class have become billionaires because they are truly oligarchs in their own right. And that is, in my opinion, the primary reason why you aren't seeing the Black community supporting the government. And I mean, it makes me, I've always questioned the elections anyway, but with what's been going on, what we've seen in the US, one has to ask, are any elections around the world actually what they're supposed to be? So it's interesting to see that, you have to question the fact that this pushback is coming from the Black community too. It's not that they aren't standing side by side with everyone else. And it's purely because they've been made so many promises. And I think those that they were trying to incite and blame whites again. Look, the previous government was pre-94. They weren't a bunch of angels either. So let's not conflate the average person with the government. And it's kind of what you're seeing unravel in the US, whereas so many people went along, they thought their vote counted, they thought that the politicians in charge of them were there and looking after their own interests. And what have you seen? You've seen how they've all enriched themselves. And it's just exactly the same here. The same playbook around the world.
Well, I think then that we'll try to, maybe we'll cover that the next time in the ruling class and how that started in '94. I'm going to give you guys the last word because we've been going now for a couple hours. I need to get this rendered and put up and get on air. But if is there anything y'all would like to close with today? And I would like to say again, we're going to do this on a regular basis because I think it's really important that we as Americans hear from other, and I appreciate you follow American politics, but I think that it's still important that we hear what's happening in these other countries. And like I've mentioned before, I have Daddy Dragon that brings that from the UK, but me trying to find a South African, I'm shocked I have 3 in the room today because finding y'all has been like a diamond in the rough. I've been looking for a South African for 2 years, and it sounds like I'm looking for a 3-headed platypus, but I mean that. It's been very difficult for me to locate someone that actually lives in South Africa. And if you know what I do behind the scenes, you would think I'd stumbled into one by now. So I will help you as any way I can get your voice out there. If it's even helping you get on other platforms, I do not mind. But with that, I want to give you guys some last words. If there anything you think that you need to say today that you didn't get a chance to say.
Ladies first.
Can I have a quick word, KB? And then you can, I think you should end it with a resounding final word. I just wanted to say, SoCO, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's really wonderful. And to all your viewers, if they are mostly American and others from around the world, I think media has oftentimes portrayed South Africa in not a good light, but I think it has been because the whole agenda has been to suppress this continent and to make us out to be less than what we are. And I know South Africans and I know Africans, and deep in our hearts, we are deep feeling people. There's such a heartbeat in Africa, you can never take it out from us. There's something so visceral about being an African. And for all of us, and I speak for myself here too, I'm really looking forward to a future where this country can thrive, and where when we travel, people will look at us and ask us questions about how successful we've become and how amazing we are contributing to the world the way that we will be. So I really thank you for this opportunity, and I hope that it can give insight into the kind of country and world contributor that we can become. Despite everything that's going on now, this will pass. But I think the opportunities that are going to come are really incredible. And I think it will be also with the assistance of people like yourself that give the voice to South Africa and to the continent of Africa. So thank you, SoCO.
It's my pleasure. Go ahead. Go ahead, KB.
I just want to say thank you as well, and to echo what Sky's been saying. What we are looking to do is actually forge our way ahead. It's really an opportune moment, I think, in the history of the world to understand that there are many people of many nations who are actually getting to understand that they've been subjugated by their own governments. And we're seeing that in the freedoms that we've lost. We've seen that in our human rights, our constitutional rights have been stripped from us as human beings around the world, whether we are getting forced to be vaccinated or whether our land is being taken away. During this whole crisis, one of the things that they're trying to pass in government is to take away land without any compensation. So we know what their agenda is, and as with many governments, governments around the world. They take every opportunity and they don't let a crisis go to waste. And thank you once again.
It is my pleasure. Evie, you have anything you want to add real quick? Uh-oh, did we lose Evie? I wanted her to be able to say something if she wanted to.
Okay, I just want to say thank you for this opportunity to get our voices out there and to have us heard. We as a country need prayers at the moment. We need God to step in, but we are not afraid. We stand together. And as KB said at the end, we know who wins, but we need to go through this fight first. But yeah, pray for us. And once this whole pandemic thing is over, book yourself a ticket and come visit, come see what we are all about. You'll be pleasantly surprised. So we'll be waiting for everybody on this side to come and visit us. Thank you.
Oh, that was beautiful. So that was beautiful. Okay, and with that, I'm going to hurry up and get this rendered, and hopefully I can broadcast it here within the next 25 minutes. This will not be the last time you hopefully hear from this group of people. I will make this a standard on this channel and try to get their voices out as much as I possibly can, because again, I think it's really important to hear from them. And again, I think it's important we also go over the history sometime in the near future. And with that, I want to thank Evie, Sky. I'm going to start calling her Sky. I always shorten people's words out names. I already warned her. Sky and KB for joining me today. Again, their voices need to be heard. That narrative needs to be pushed back on, that the mainstream media is going to try and make you feel like they are a divided country. They do love their land, just like we love America. They love South Africa. And I think it's important that people don't forget that. And with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us. We will do this again. Have a great evening, everyone. And we'll see you tonight again with me and Casey and Eric. So hopefully, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to plug, I'm probably going to be with Daddy Dragon tomorrow. We're trying to iron it out. So there's a strong possibility I'll be on his channel tomorrow night.
Good. Do you know what time?
No, I actually have communicated with him, but I haven't heard back.
Well, and I'll try to help you facilitate that. He usually goes live about, I believe, 4 my time. So 4 or 5 Eastern, I believe. But yeah, a lot of his audience watches here. He does a channel on a show on this channel. So he's got a lot of folks from the UK. So that's awesome. And the more that you can be spread around, the merrier I am. And with that, guys, thanks again for hanging out with us. We will see you again shortly after this tonight for a show, and then we'll bring these guys back. So I can stop it now because I can tell you my outro. But yeah, that was it. We just recorded that right before about an hour before I went live. As soon as I could get it rendered and put up, that's what I did. Again, they're 7 hours ahead of us here, ahead of me here. Sorry, I'm trying to type it in YouTube. You're busting me as I'm speaking. It's just difficult for me sometimes. But yeah, so that happened. I wanted to tell you guys something else too. I was playing that. KB was actually messaging me. I think I put this out in chat, but he said that arsonists are now attacking the sugar refineries. He said it's definitely orchestrated by the government. They are trying to cripple everything and use it as an excuse to cover their own corruption and failings, our own deep state. Then he sent me this, and guys, I apologize if I mess this up. I wish I could. Maybe it's his first name. Let's see here. He said, "Dear all, please receive first economic estimates in relation to the unrest. 1, more than 1.5 billion rand loss of stock, more than 15 billion rand of damage to property and equipment, more than 50,000 informal traders affected, more than 40,000 businesses affected, and a bigger portion might not come back. Sound familiar, guys? More than 150,000 jobs are at risk, and close to 1.5 million are at home with no income due to unrest. The total impact to Ethiopian GDP is the last 5 days is estimated at more than 20 billion rand. So yeah, if you look around and notice some of the similarities that are happening all over the world, look what's going on with Cuba right now. Look what we saw happen in Venezuela over the last few years. Look what happened in Hong Kong when they decided to start speaking out. Nobody talks about what China did to Hong Kong. Nobody anymore. So if you look around the world and notice, it does seem very coordinated. I don't want to call them weaker countries because that sounds derogatory. I think you guys know what I mean by that, though. People that don't have a set constitution as strong as ours, it seems like they've gone after first. Look at Canada. You had that one pastor that went viral on the social media accounts. You know who I'm talking about. The guy that yelled at the officers, told him to get out. They arrested that man in the middle of the street in damn daylight. Exactly. And she said Taiwan. Look, watch what happened with the U in response to COVID. We couldn't even say the word Taiwan. We're watching it happen. So it's important for me. I don't think we do it enough, and I will take ownership for that myself. I don't think we cover the world news as much as we need to, because all these countries matter. Yes, I appreciate that people focus on American politics, just like the folks that joined me right there talked about how they follow America probably a lot, even more than they do their own. I've heard that several times from several different people. Even you can look what's going on in Ireland right now. But I think that it's very important, even if I have to try and find a host that I can just dedicate to doing that, to cover the news outside of America, what's happening in these countries, because it's devastating to them. It doesn't get enough attention, and my heart goes out to them, because at least here, we feel like we have some resemblance left of like a First Amendment and a Second Amendment, and there we're just watching, people's lives be destroyed. There are already so many people starving in South Africa and in Africa in general. Look what's happening in Cuba. I showed you that video a couple weeks ago where that man came to America, and his girlfriend had been able to shoot some video inside of supermarkets in Cuba where they would stand in line for hours to get one item. And that's, again, what we have here in America. We have a far left agenda that's trying to shove communist Marxism, socialism, even though we have all these examples of why it destroys a country. It doesn't. It's like these people are have silly putty for a brain. It's like common sense does not matter to them. Facts do not matter to them. It's like they're robotic, mindless mouthpieces for some government that wants a new world order. And they're just out there marching orders. Here we go. Oh, look, they gave me an iPhone to come out here and, throw bottles at a National Guardsman in Port. I don't know what's going on. But thanks for, that's what I mentioned, Canada. Yep, Canada earlier. It's happening in a lot of places. So I need to do a better job of making sure that we talk about that, because again, I think it's important. I think you can see what's coming down the pipes when you pay attention to the rest of the world. It's not all about America. America, yes, it's important. I live here, but it's not just about America. It's about all you guys too that don't live in America. Your freedom matters. Being able to feed your family matters. It does. I'm no better than you. You're no better than me. We all matter. So I don't know. We'll try to continue to do a better job at that. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and allowing me to play that for you guys. Because again, South Africa pulls at my heartstrings because of my friendship with Bad Boy from a while back, and I know what's happening there doesn't get talked about enough. Just like I said, the rest of the daggum country. So I think our email too. If not, I'll shout it out real quick. It's the 5x5. .network@gmail.com, and I'll try to highlight that later in case you're hopefully going to do a show in a couple hours. But again, 5F, it's FIVEX, then the number 5.network@gmail.com. So if you live in another country, Ireland, Scotland, New Zealand. I've been looking for somebody from New Zealand for a long time too. I've got Daddy for the UK. I've just got my hands on these guys from South Africa. But even a Canadian, whatever. If you want to can cover some world news and you feel comfortable doing that, email me. Let me know, because we need to start focusing on what's happening in the rest of the world. It's not just all about America. I know people get a lot of hope from us here, but there's a whole world out there that we need to pay attention to. That, guys, I'm going to get off here. I've been going for several hours now. Thanks for hanging out with me again. You guys are the best. I appreciate all the love out there. You guys are really awesome. And I'm just going to say this little inside joke. Don't ever call an English person a British, okay? I mean, that's like cussing out their mother, all right? Just learn it from me. Don't ever do it. It's bad. And with that, guys, thanks for hanging out with me. We'll catch you guys later. And have a great night. And again, we'll be back a couple hours to go over ghosts and UFOs and Bigfoot, apparently. So that should be interesting. That's at 9 my time, so hour and 45 minutes or so. Bye, everybody.